Today we are talking about the Kawasaki Ninja H2 because this is one of those bikes that just makes people stop and stare the moment it goes past them. When you see the H2 in person, the first thing you notice is that it does not look like a normal sport bike. It has this shiny green paint that almost looks like liquid when the sun hits it, and Kawasaki actually paints it using a special process. So every bike looks a little different depending on the light. The body is sharp and aggressive, with lots of layered panels that almost look like armor. There is a raw mechanical look to it because part of the engine and frame is left exposed, which gives it a tough, almost weapon-like feel, even when it is just parked. The back of the bike is short and tucked in, which makes it look like it is leaning forward and ready to go, and the exhaust sitting low just adds to that aggressive look. Very few bikes look this serious while just standing still in a parking lot. Now let's talk about what really makes this bike special, and that is the engine. Inside it is a 998 cubic centimeter engine, but the real story is the supercharger. Kawasaki actually bolted a supercharger onto this engine, which is something almost no other production motorcycle has. This supercharger forces extra air into the engine, and the result is around 228 horsepower on the regular H2. If you go for the H2R, which is the track-only version, that number jumps to around 310 horsepower, which is an insane amount of power for a motorcycle. The acceleration is brutal in the best way possible. It can go from 0 to 60 in about 2.5 seconds, and the top speed is limited by the bike's computer, but it can still comfortably go past 186 miles per hour. The sound this bike makes is also something you will never forget, because the supercharger creates this high-pitched whine, almost like a jet engine, combined with the exhaust sound, and you will not hear anything like it on a normal sport bike. When it comes to handling, this is not a light and flickable bike like some other superbikes. The H2 weighs around 524 pounds, which is heavier than bikes like the ZX-10R. So in slow, tight corners, you do feel that extra weight. But once you get onto faster roads or a racetrack, that weight actually helps because it makes the bike feel stable and planted at high speed. Kawasaki also gives it electronic suspension on some versions, along with rider aids like traction control, launch control, and cornering support. So even with this much power, the bike does not feel scary or out of control. It actually feels like it was built to keep that power in check. The brakes are Brembo brakes, which are known for being very strong, and you really do need strong brakes on a bike that can hit such high speeds so quickly. The riding position is sporty, so you do lean forward a bit, but it is not as extreme as some other fast bikes, which means longer rides are not as tiring on your wrists and back compared to something like a Ducati Panigale. Now let's talk about the price, because this is where things get real. The Kawasaki Ninja H2 usually costs around $29,000 to $30,000 US, depending on where you buy it and which trim you choose. There is also the H2SX version, which is more comfortable for longer rides and has space for luggage, and that one usually costs around $25,000 to $27,000. But if you want the H2R, the track-only version with even more power, that price can go above $55,000. And remember, that one cannot even be ridden on public roads, so you are basically paying for pure performance. If you compare this to other powerful bikes like the Ducati Panigale V4 or the BMW M1000RR, the H2 is priced in a similar range, but it offers something those bikes simply do not have, and that is the supercharger experience. There is really nothing else right now that sounds and feels like this bike when you twist the throttle. Is the Ninja H2 practical for daily use? Not really. Is it super comfortable for long trips? Also not really. But is it one of the most exciting and good-looking motorcycles you can buy today? Yes, absolutely. If you have the money and the riding experience to handle this much power, the H2 feels less like a normal motorcycle and more like Kawasaki, proving they can build something completely different, and they really did pull it off. That's it for today's review on RevReviews.